What inspired you to focus on relationships as a core aspect of your business?
If you want to be liked, you need to be likable. And I'm grateful that fundamentally I was raised to be likable. And he would always say, Mike, drop the pebble, chase the ripples. Well, the reality is a slow, methodical process.
Is there any habit or mindset that kind of like keeps you on track?
Everyone communicates, few connect. Connection is about the other person. If you want to connect with a person, get over yourself and make it about them. That's John C. Maxwell's law.
Great leaders do not necessarily mean a smooth sailing. It means that he or she has the capability of navigating you through the storm. What's your take on that?
Having perseverance and resilience, learning from mistakes, digging deep in the hard times, that's the journey.
What do leaders think, or what challenges do they have in this market? How can a home builder navigate the situation?
You know, that may go on to the buyer inevitably because you can't get anything cheaper anywhere today. So that's a reality. I'm going to build 50 new relationships this week. It doesn't work that way.
Okay.
If you're at a networking event, you meet 20 people with business cards. You got to build one relationship at a time. You can't build all 20 of them at the same time.
I built one on that network with you.
Exactly. So slow and steady wins the race, and be very intentional. So if you want to do something, how do you do it? More times than not, we need to optimize the who. What you do matters most, sometimes more than what you say as well. And it has to be consistent at every interaction.
Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Live Life and Real Estate. This is your host Sohil Lakhani, and today we have a very important guest. He is a business leader, a sought after executive coach, consultant and facilitator. He and his team has helped so many businesses and teams realizing their full potential. He's also a 3-time Amazon best-selling author. His latest book, Lunch with Leaders, is full of value. If you want to elevate your relationship and leadership game, this is the episode you need to see. So let's dive in. Mike, I'm super excited and thrilled to have you on the show. Thank you so much for taking the time.
My absolute pleasure, and I'm most grateful that you invited me to the show as well. I'm excited.
For sure, I totally understand you had a busy schedule today, but this was perfect.
Yeah, you bet. It was great timing today.
Perfect. Mike, I've known you since 2017.
You bet.
And I have followed you and have read your books. However, for the audience, would you mind enlighten us in terms of like what you do?
You bet. I'm grateful. So first of all, I am the president and founder of X5 Management. In fact, we're celebrating our 18th anniversary in the fall of 2024. So it's evolved over time, but in its simplest form, corporate training, executive coaching, leadership coaching, sales coaching, and then we do a lot of group coaching. Group coaching has really evolved over the last number of years where we can have a one-to-many, if you will, be it a sales team or otherwise. And then inevitably our third lane of our service offering is consulting. So that might be strategic planning, stakeholder engagement, facilitation, or just general business consulting. Some clients that we have on our retainer, for example, want advice. So that's kind of our lane in a nutshell. Predominantly our target of interest, if you will, is small to medium-sized enterprise. So our client base may vary from 30 employees to 4,000 as an example.
Wow.
Most cases those are Alberta-based companies, but kind of post-COVID you got to appreciate that global world and connection has allowed us to work more effectively virtually as well. So our split is about 50-50 in terms of how we service those clients today in those lanes of business offering.
Wonderful. So X5 Management is now 18 years old. That's
it
wonderful.
Is, you bet. Yeah, coming up middle of October 2024 will be 18 years, and I've been along the journey the whole time when I started it way back when, and it's hard to believe, literally a snap of the fingers, how quickly that goes.
No, this is so amazing.
Yeah.
Now, Mike, you have built a strong reputation as a coach, as a facilitator, as a business leader. What inspired you to focus on relationships as a core aspect of your business?
Well, I love the question, and it's funny, I talk about relationships a lot. You know, I think it was fundamental, just part of my upbringing as well, and I realized that the relationships I built were a benefit, whether I helped someone else or they helped me as well. And it's really been the cornerstone of who Mike Mack is in a nutshell. So everything that I do involves relationships. And I know in the Edmonton market, for example, Many people would remember when I've done public presentations years ago, I referenced LRT.
Yes.
So not the complicated LRT that we've been dealing with in Edmonton of our transit, but rather like, respect, and trust. And I kind of coined that over time, and there's different adaptations of that particular concept. But my philosophy from a relationship perspective anyway is, if you want to be liked, you need to be likable. And I'm grateful that fundamentally I was raised to be likable. The second aspect, if you want to be respected, you need to show respect and be respectful. And again, learn skill over time in my childhood and the mentors that I had over time. And then finally, if you want to be trusted, be trustworthy. That's applicable in any industry, real estate, property management, whatever you name it. Those are key fundamentals that I'm very strong about and passionate about. So it's been the cornerstone, and I've decided that that's who I am, and I'm never going to change with that. And it's become a strength, and it's something that I'm very proud of as well, that I care a great deal about relationships. In fact, I would often say if X5 lost a client relationship, that would be harder than actually losing the revenue of that client sometimes. So it's that important to me.
No, it's so funny you mentioned about the LRT, and I vividly remember our lunch meeting in 2022, and you mentioned about LRT.
Yeah.
And I want to maybe dig a little bit deeper into that.
Sure.
And just try to understand in terms of, in this fast-paced world, when everything is online, it's difficult to balance. I personally find it difficult to balance between online, digital, and real life. How can one cultivate or use LRT to develop a meaningful relationships in this time?
Yeah, it's a great question, and an important question at that. I think number one, you got to be very intentional. So you can't fake LRT. You've got to be genuine and authentic. So it's part of your DNA. I'm fortunate because by design I'm a collaborative, people-oriented person. So maybe I find that easier than some. But most people, as I always say, want to do business with people that they like, respect, and trust. Whether it's the car dealership, a realtor, it doesn't matter. So it's fundamentally important. As we have evolved over the last number of years from a digital world, including things like Teams and Zoom and so on, you got to continue to portray that authentic self regardless. So even our photos and our images and what we do, are you the same person that shows up in that boardroom versus being online on LinkedIn or on Facebook or Instagram or whatever the case? So it's an intention, and I call it a guiding principle for me, is that I never waver on that. So whether it's my neighbor helping someone at the store or it's a client, senior or junior relative to that organization, it's just a way of being. I think that's the best way to describe it. From my vantage point, it's never hurt me. It's only ever offered value. But in turn, I feel that I've offered value as well. One of the greatest compliments anyone can give me today is that they trust me. So LRT is important, but trust is a fundamental cornerstone. Whether you're going to decide to list your home, for example, that trust element is important because the like takes some time. It doesn't always happen the first meeting. Yeah. You and I met, we hit it off, and we built a relationship over the last number of years. It's a process. It's not a sprint. It's not a race. It's something, I've referenced my book, Relationship for Keeps. Those relationships that I built over time, even though I don't talk to someone for a long time, they still pick up the phone or send me a message on LinkedIn. And in some cases, we even acquire new business because of that. And you hope that maybe you had an impact with them that many years ago, that you were likable, respectful, and trustworthy as well. So it's a cornerstone that can serve, I think, anyone well that is listening to your program.
Oh, this is such a wonderful advice, and just a comment onto that one is, in this fast-paced world, the way I look at things is, when we are talking to the clients, and it's very short meeting sometimes, they basically maybe found you out as a referral source or something.
Sure. And
they come and they talk to you, or we go to the house and we look at the house and we talk to the clients. That's just a likable portion over there. We can create a first impression.
Agreed.
But because now we have online presence, they go there, they look out your videos, they see what you have done in the past, and
Indeed.
that kind of like help build the trust as well.
It does.
That's how I collaboratively try to see between how I can manage real versus digital life.
Yeah.
But would you agree that the principles of the relationship building are the same? It's just the methods have evolved. What's your take on that?
Yeah, I think that's evident, and I want to give you a compliment as well. I'm privileged to be on your show today,
Thank you.
but I'm also doing that because I like, respect, and trust you. Every time you showed up, you're consistently the same guy, and the more I get to know you, the more I like, respect, and trust you.
Thank you.
So you're on the road to many great things. You know, I think I go back to the intention of it is that likability. So let's use real estate as an example. So if I got a referral and my wife and I are gonna deal with you for a new home, there's got to be that connection. So I got to feel that right away. Obviously, the referral or the recommendation is based on that you're credible. So there's a technical level of respect. You've been in the industry for a number of years. You've listed or sold a bunch of homes. The trust starts right after our first meeting from my vantage point. So will you get back to me when you said you're going to get back to me? Will you show me some of those listed homes so my wife and I can shortlist that and look at it? What you do matters most, sometimes more than what you say as well. And it has to be consistent at every interaction. So if you're having an off day and it's our second meeting together, that can have a negative impact on where that goes. Because I don't know you well enough to know that's only one bad day of 100. That's very different than, you know, you're hot and cold, if you will.
But being in the business, you have to manage your bad days in front of the clients, because it's funny you mentioned this. I had this question follow up when we discussed the leadership section.
Sure.
So we'll circle back to that bad days portion.
Absolutely.
But to continue our conversation on track, when we are using like respect and trust to build the relationships, what practical tips or advice could you give us in terms of maintaining it for a longer period of time? Because the reason I ask is I have had people or friends who I know from 2016 and I haven't done business with them until 2022. But we just carried along, we just made friends and connections.
Sure.
What's your take on that to keep and maintain those relations?
Well, number one, as I said earlier, it's not a sprint. You know, it's a long play. So I'll offer a couple comments: patience and persistence. So be it sales or otherwise, you can't close the deal in the first encounter. So it's a slow and steady build of that relationship. My mentor, who's referenced in one of my books, Arnold McLaughlin, who's 89 years young at this point in time, ironically, who spent over 50 years in real estate in the Vancouver area. He referenced a concept, and I would use that not only in business development, but in relationship building as well. And he would always say, Mike, drop the pebble, chase the ripples. Well, the reality is a slow, methodical process. So if you think of dropping a pebble in the context of a relationship, sometimes it's just that connection. You reached out to me. We had lunch kind of in the home stretch of COVID, right? We had that in the Windermere area, if I recall, a couple years ago. And that was a drop a pebble conversation. When you reached out to me for the opportunity to be on your podcast, I didn't say no. I immediately said that because you dropped the pebble. So being very intentional and being able to do that. So I echo that again and again, that everybody wants things fast. You know, things worth waiting for are worth waiting for. Relationships are a great example of that. So when I think of some long-standing relationships that I have in the marketplace, I look back at, hey, where did that start? And I always kind of roll the tape back, if you will, and I always go back to some base encounter, like you and I meeting, or having that luncheon meeting, or us having a conversation today. So I think being very intentional and say, be it LinkedIn or otherwise, I have a lot of connections on LinkedIn, and the reality is I don't talk to everybody every single day. We don't have time to be able to do that. I have a concept that I'll share with you and your viewers as well, centers of influence. So if you look at your core group of people that you may interact with more, that you can help or they can help you. I regard you as my center of influence, and hopefully in turn I can be yours, where I go back to, who are those centers of influences in my life? Well, number one, there's like, respect, and trust. That's the core. They could be the janitor or the CEO. So it's less positional, because a janitor can refer business, as an example. And I mean that's a respectful position. I'm just illustrating an example. Some people want to go for the big C-suite all the time in that relationship, but sometimes you got to start with the ground floor. Were you nice and respectful to the receptionist before you had the meeting coming into the accounting office, or whatever the case may be. So it's how you show up and how you can authentically be that on a day in and day out basis. I know from a personal experience, there's people that I've deselected in my life, be it personally or professionally, that didn't meet that criteria. And sadly, I'm not missing a lot. Here's the other tip on that one. Surround yourself with people that want to play in the world of like, respect, and trust. Like,
Interesting.
Not only makes the world a better place, if you think about the challenges that we have in the world everywhere today, is that I want to surround myself with people that care about people. Whether they're the smartest person in town, that's not as important, but I want them to be a good person.
Good human
And that matters most, 100%. Good human being, I agree.
No, that's a very, very interesting comment, and that kind of like, I believe is very necessary in this world in terms of, and whatever you're mentioning in terms of like being genuine and being authentic, I believe this is more of a character development in terms of like how you carry yourself, how a person cannot come across as trustworthy if they are not. There's no way they cannot come across as that.
Fake it.
You cannot fake that portion. And I really believe into that, like there, and the way I say it, there have been a couple of moments in my life when a client tells me they want to see this house or they want to put an offer onto this house. When I see this is not a right fit for them, I can see that they are looking just right now, but I am looking for them into 5 years down the line. When their family grows and they need, or their parents come, this house is good for them for a year or two, but not for 5 years. And you cannot change homes every 2 years or 3 years.
Absolutely.
So I kind of like tell them, sorry, I would as your realtor, probably I won't advise you or suggest you to go for this. We have time, let's look at some other options. And that kind of like build trust as well, because my client then tells me that Sohil is looking after us as a best interest rather than just selling us any home.
100%. I'm smiling when you're saying that, because from my vantage point, that if I'm that client, I'm like, he is serving the best interest of our outcome versus closing a deal, the quick deal, even if it's a better price or whatever the case. It's a process as well.
I just have one other question for you, Mike, is there any habit or mindset that kind of like keeps you on track while maintaining, developing relationships? Like, what do you think, or what mindset do you cultivate in that aspect?
I love your questions. I mean, I think there's a lot of items. Number one, fundamentally, I know I practice gratitude way more than I do, and the gratitude of what I have in my life, but it's the gratitude of the relationships that I have. And maybe that's if I haven't talked to you for a while, or reaching out, hey, I hope you're doing well, or thanking. So needing to be intentional with that. It takes effort to be able to do that. You know, I think the other aspect is that a lot of times you can make a difference in people's lives and you don't necessarily get paid to do that. I think that's the other aspect that's, we'll call that a tip or a concept, is that you could help somebody, you know, in a grocery store or otherwise, where you're able to do that kind of more on an intentional aspect. So, and I think the other aspect is, how important are relationships to you? Here's the reality. If we take 1 million people, you and I may be in the top half of the people that care about relationships. Not top half in the context of better, but that's a priority to us. There's a lot of people that don't get excited about meeting new people or building relationships, and I respect that. Their profession may allow them to not be as interactive with people as well. So maybe the tip also, be it someone listening to this that's at an early stage of the career or otherwise, you know, make sure you pick your lane as well. I'm in the profession that I am. I'm a people person. I get to talk to people every single day. I probably talk to 50 different people a week professionally. Not everybody wants that. I'm super comfortable with that. That's important. So I think that don't be something you're not. Hey, I'm going to get into real estate to make money versus I'm in real estate because I want to make a difference in families' lives and give them a future home that their kids are going to enjoy. You know, my wife and I bought a new home a number of years ago during the COVID journey, and it's our dream home. It's our oasis. It's so important in what you get to do professionally that taking time to care. You know, what makes that customer or prospective customer tick? Investing that extra time in connecting and find out what they're interested in as well, personally and professionally. We get too busy, we don't do that.
Yes.
How's your day? Good. and then we never talk about anything else.
Many times we have had I have that feeling that we have that surface level conversation.
Surface level, yeah.
But we do not dive deep into, and not anyone's fault because clients are busy, we are busy, like we just have 2 hour window and we have to show 5-7 houses.
100%.
But the moment we take in between while climbing the stairs or going out of the door and just having few tidbit conversations that kind of like sparks their personal attachment,
Well said.
that kind of like makes them feel more connected.
Indeed. Well, and on that note, if I may, a couple items is that when you think of that connection, and that's kind of a concept that I coach on a lot relative to relationships. So one of my favorite books from probably 14 years ago, John C. Maxwell, he's a great leadership author. Everyone communicates, few connect. So you're repeating my words so you know the book. And I always say to people, well, if you don't have time to read the book, here's the concept. Connection is about the other person. If you want to connect with a person, get over yourself and make it about them. That's John C. Maxwell's line. And then the other important concept that I apply in that book, most people, whether it's your first prospective client looking at a home or one of my prospective clients at X5 Management, they think about 3 things and questions they ask themselves subliminally. Can I trust you? Do you care about me? And can you help me?
Okay.
Those are core fundamentals, and particularly in business, if they're coming to you for real estate or coaching services or accounting services, those are pretty fundamentally important things. I want you to trust me. Hopefully you care about me over time, unless it's strictly a transaction. Getting my car washed at Bubbles, for example, they're nice, the service is great. The care isn't quite the same as a realtor relationship, and as you know in your industry 20 years from now, you can be working with the same clients a couple times, their sons, their daughters, whatever that may be. That's what that's about. That's that core fundamental that will serve the business community well in the long run. And it doesn't cost you anything to do it either. That's the best part.
It's so interesting you said that. I'm going to take it to heart, those 3 lines, and kind of make sure that I use it or keep that in mind when I'm talking to my clients.
Good for you.
This is very interesting. I want to shift the gear, Mike, from relationships to your new book, Lunch with Leaders.
Thank you.
And I want to discuss your journey in terms of what inspired you to write this book.
Yeah. Well, I people have asked me that question often, and it's my 4th book in the last, I think, 7 years. I'm losing track of that. Writing a book is almost like having a tattoo. I don't have a tattoo for the record, but you know, once you start, you get a bit of that flow of doing that. So I've written books on relationships and customer service and revolving door, retaining employees. I did a co-author with my colleague. Lunch with Leaders was the absolute biggest project I've ever done, the most expensive project I've ever done. But really the evolution of it and why I wanted to do it, and that started, I have to go back on memory, the fall of 2022, at least, the concept. So in my profession, what I get to do, because I'm active in my business as well, even though I have a team, I do work with leaders. So the reality is I've learned over time, and there's been a few clients that I've had many, many lunches with over the years, that while I'm getting paid to help them, I realize sometimes when I'm having lunch, I learn from them as well. So that really became the catalyst is, what if we built out a book, Lunch with Leaders? That was the title right away, that we could make come to life on paper. It is on audio now and Audible as well, where other people could learn about other people's stories. The reality is, while I wrote the book and I put it together in their words, the book was never intended to be about me. I'm the author, but I wanted to share their stories. Why the 12 chapters that are selected in that, those chapters mean a lot to me as well, and I was hoping that they would mean a lot to other individuals. So it was a bit of a process selecting, hey, who's going to be in the book? Not everybody that I asked wanted to, for various reasons, whether they weren't comfortable to share their story or the journey. So as you recall, the subtitle is, real stories. So it was real stories, we're not making this up, about pivotal moments. So that TSN turning point, or what happened in the business, be it a health situation, an economic black swan event, whatever that may have been, COVID as an example. But that was a bit of the journey. So while it was a long, brutal, painful process, nothing to do with the people in the book, I had challenges with my publisher, just delays, waiting for it. For me, it was well worth the effort to put that together as well. So that was the catalyst. I'm proud of it. and I've got some good feedback on it. It became a bestseller on Amazon, so something I'm proud of. But if you're ever going to write a book, a bit of a tip, you don't get rich and famous on it unless you're already rich and famous beforehand. So again, it was never the intended that you're going to roll a bunch of money on that. Just I've got a decent brand in the Edmonton marketplace, but the reality is I'm not Tony Robbins or Darren Hardy or whoever the case may be.
No, perfect. But I have read your book. I have read a couple of chapters into it. Few are left, but I have found this very helpful in terms of like what leaders think.
Yeah, wonderful.
And I want to bring it on to the video platform here in terms of. I have a comment here that one of my mentors told me in the early stage of my career.
Sure.
Is great leaders do not necessarily mean a smooth sailing. It means that he or she has the capability of navigating you through the storm. What's your take on that?
I 100% agree on that, and I think I even reference a couple things, I think in the introduction of my chapter, if I recall, about navigating yourself safely to shore, if you will, if you're using a ship example, because the leaders in this book are incredibly humble. They're successful in their own right, and arguably across the country they have relative success. The chapters were never about that. It was about the journey. It was about the pivotal moments. It was about the hardships. It was about the tough days as much as anything. So I think, a couple notable things to your point, having perseverance and resilience, learning from mistakes, digging deep in the hard times, that's the journey. Be it as an entrepreneur, a leader, whatever that may be. That was one of the takeaways for me as well, that there was a theme, that they weren't bragging about how great they were. It was about, wow, that was tough. How did I get here? So fear is a choice, one of the chapters in the example, right, where those were perseverance hits the nail on the head, another chapter. It was all those things that were the tough times. Losing family members, almost losing the entire business financially. There were the struggles that went with that really made them the leaders that were depicted in the book. That's how I see that.
It's so interesting you said that, and all those traits that kind of like make the great leaders. And that ties into my next question is like being in the real estate industry, and I'm taking the example of not as a realtor, but let's say there are so many good home builders here, and I believe you have some of your clients home builders as well. Now, home building is a tough job, and it requires so many moving parts, so many employees and people.
Indeed.
And there are so many things that are out of your control in terms of like during the COVID times or during even right now the costs are going up, the Gen Z employee, the retention problem. What do leaders think, or what challenges do they have in this market navigating? How can a home builder navigate the situation? A rising cost, retaining employees, don't know what kind of stuff to make. Maybe they have their own team, but how can they navigate those situations?
Yeah, well, I'll comment on a few examples, and I'll reference home building as a starter, and I'll give a plug to Coventry Homes. That's a client. If you think about it, obviously the cost of materials and so on, and that may go on to the buyer inevitably, because you can't get anything cheaper anywhere today. So that's a reality. So being highly productive and efficient, that comes up, particularly on construction or manufacturing for the example. So the efficiency that you make every hour, every dollar count. So be it from pouring a basement to the framing to the finishing of a home, for example. How can they, for example, turn that home in a timely manner? Because you only get paid when the client moves in, the homeowner moves into their new home. So retention of people comes up. That's pretty consistent in my world, regardless of the industry that we get to work with right now, is that job market particularly in Alberta, we're blessed right now that a lot of good things are occurring where most sectors are firing at all cylinders, where the demand for good people. So obviously acquiring good people, retaining good people, developing new people as well are incredibly important, and that includes succession planning and whatever the case may be. So always the tip that I would provide any business owner, and many of them have this down already anyway, but you got your business, whatever the widget you're selling or the home you're building or manufacturing, but the people side, goes back to the relationship side, matters a great deal. Because earlier, if we reference about connection and trust and do you care about me and can you help me, it's pretty applicable in the relationship relative to employer an employee as well, regardless of the industry as well. And those that do it very well, my observation, have been very, very effective at retaining people over time and don't have an exit for an extra dollar or $2. They're retaining and staying there because they want to be there, which is the best place to be in from an organizational perspective.
And just to reference on that comment regarding one of the chapters in your book regarding the Lexus.
Yes.
The CEO, the person, Bruce, he mentioned he has done a couple of businesses together before, but he mentions that getting into Lexus was nothing new because it's all about people. It's not about the house. It's not about the car. Yeah. It's about the people.
100%. Yeah, and I appreciate you bringing that up. I just saw Bruce the other day where I've known Bruce a long time, and he is the consummate leader, consummate community builder as well. But that chapter put, people first. It's always about that. He says it's never about the car. His knack and ability and the culture he's built also has made it about the people. So he doesn't just say it. The actions relative to retention, the development of people become really important. And it's an investment, not only financially, but it's an investment of time.
Yeah.
And you don't reap the benefits for a period of time, whether it's selling cars, real estate, or homes for that matter as well. So the people aspect matters. The fact that you're in the industry that you are, if there's lots of people that know how to sell a home, but the connection that you have, realtors are a big deal. They're busy. People can figure they can sell their home on their own, and I'm sure you've been there, but we've been on both sides of that beforehand, selling and buying, and just the detail, the attention, and it's a profession that's needed. And from my vantage point, I want to be able to work with someone that I like, respect, and trust as well. So hopefully they learn well about people being important as they did, as you have.
Oh, wonderful. This is a very nice comment, Mike. One last question before we wrap up.
You bet.
What advice or the wisdom nuggets, as you say, we can give to the audience in terms of building relations and developing leaderships?
Yeah, great. I love your questions. I think we'll start with the relationship side, and I'll echo, obviously, like, respect, and trust. But you got to start with one relationship. So I always give examples. I'm fairly active on LinkedIn. I got a big network. So I always say it's one relationship at a time. It's not a quota. I'm going to build 50 new relationships this week. It doesn't work that way.
Okay.
If you're at a networking event, you meet 20 people with business cards. You got to build one relationship at a time. You can't build all 20 of them at the same time.
I built one on that network with you.
Exactly. So slow and steady wins the race, and be very intentional. Now, of those 20 business cards that you acquire, rest assured that you're not going to build long-standing, meaningful relationship with every single person. But you hope that you're going to have higher on the numbers, above average. So that becomes critically important. From a leadership perspective, relative to business or life or your relationship, if you will, I think be intentional. I always say clarity is a beautiful thing. So if you think, hey, I'm going to grow my business. So why do you want to grow your business? How are you going to grow your business? What does that look like if you grow your business? What would you do with it if you grew your business? Would you grow that through other people? What's it about? Is it about the money? Is it about making an impact in the community? So that's always some general advice. And this is an old Tony Robbins line, and I may have shared with you before, but OPA, and I coach on this all the time, OPA, outcome. What do you want? So that's a great place to start. Generally, there's more than one thing we want. Hey, I want to have a good 2025. Well, what does that look like? That could be my health, my wife's health, our family's health, the business success, growth, my team success, etc. So be very clear on that. The second part of P, purpose, why do you want it? Why must be the most compelling in everything that we do, whether you're building a relationship, not just for the sake of doing it or growing your business. The why, the intention, the purpose is very, very powerful. And then inevitably, the action. Well, how am I going to do that? We all don't have all the same answers. We're in the coaching business. We help a lot of businesses. I have a professional coach as well. Just worked with her a couple days ago. So sometimes you need that guide and support to be able to do that. I'll share a bit of a statistic, and it's a soft statistic because I've been doing this for almost 18 years. I've used this OPA concept for a long time. Tony Robbins gets the credit. It's a simple concept, but I like it. I would say if I had talked to 100 people or 500 people, generally speaking, at least 50% of those people or more are missing at least one or two of those areas at a given time. So if someone wants to develop their career, so what do you want? Yeah, I don't know. Because they never thought about it. Somebody goes, hey, I want to make more money.
How much?
Well, how much? Or why do you want to make more money? Well, it's expensive. But there's more to it than that versus, hey, I want to raise my kids and get a good education, etc., or plan a family vacation, whatever it is. And then inevitably, not everybody knows how to do it. Lots of people don't build out their relationships. If you did do that, you obviously have way more people that you could reach out to. So it's kind of reciprocity a little bit as well, because I help a lot of people. Lots of people in the Edmonton market have helped me over time, and I'm most grateful for that. So again, knowing what you want, why you want it, and how you're going to get it, more times than not, you might need someone to help you. I'm going to give a plug to Dan Sullivan and Dr. Benjamin Hardy's book, one of my favorites in the last couple of years, Who, Not How. So if you want to do something, how do you do it? More times than not, we need to optimize the who. So if you got a great network of great people that have a relationship with, I'd say, hey, who would you recommend to landscape my yard? You probably have 7 contacts as an example. So the relationships matter. More times than not, I've had referrals from people. I don't shop around. If you said, talk to John, Mike, I'm going to talk to John. I don't need to talk to 6 different people because I trust you and I'm confident that John will help me with what I need. So never lose sight on the who aspect.
The who aspect. Yeah. It's the people aspect. It's the
people aspect. Always people aspect.
Oh, wonderful. Mike, I would like to thank you for sharing this incredible wisdom with us.
My pleasure.
And I'm very confident that our audience would have taken a lot from this. And I wish you all the best in the future endeavors. And I'm always willing to stay in touch with you. And we can take it from there.
I am most grateful. And again, I want to thank you for the opportunity and wish you tremendous success as well. I was commenting about even the design of your show and the things that you do in the community and how you do business. I really admire that. And you and I have built a relationship, and I'm confident 5 years from now we'll be able to elevate that as well. But be intentional about that as well. Can't wait to see this in action, and hopefully we add some value to your viewers today as well.
For sure. Thank you, Mike. Really
Pleasure.
appreciate this.
You bet.
Thank you.